Title: The Awakening of the Dragon and the Trials of the Hero. It was a time long past when the lands were ruled by dragons and heroes alike. In the heart of the Forgotten Valley, a powerful slumber lay upon a dragon of ancient lineage. His name was Arion, and his scales shimmered like the midnight sky, each scale a testament to the power he once wielded. Beneath the towering peaks and deep within the mist-filled forests, the heroes of the past had sealed away Arion's might. The world had grown peaceful, for Arion's wrath had once destroyed kingdoms. Yet, the peace came at a cost. The trials of heroes passed into legend, and the dragon's slumber remained undisturbed for now. But every legend has its time to awaken. On the edge of the valley, a young warrior named Aelric stood upon a cliff, staring out over the horizon. His heart beat with a restless energy, and deep within him, a longing stirred. He had heard the whispers tales of an ancient power, a dragon whose awakening would herald the rise of a new age. It was said that only the worthy could awaken the dragon, and in doing so, prove their courage in the face of impossible trials. Aelric had trained his whole life for this moment. The path had not been easy, but with each step, he had grown stronger, wiser. He had learned to wield a sword, to read the signs of the land, and to listen to the stories carried by the wind. Yet, nothing had prepared him for the trials that awaited. Aelric closed his eyes, remembering the words of the old sage who had raised him. The trials are not of strength alone, but of heart, mind, and spirit. Face them with courage, and you will find the dragon's power. Fail, and darkness will claim you. His eyes opened, and with a determined breath, Aelric set forth toward the valley's heart, where the dragon's slumber awaited. As Aelric ventured deeper into the valley, the air grew thick with a strange energy. The trees seemed to watch him, their gnarled branches twisting like ancient fingers. At the entrance to the dragon's lair, a voice echoed through the air. To face the dragon, you must first prove your mind. Solve the riddle that guards the path, or be lost forever. Aelric took a deep breath. Before him stood an ancient stone door, etched with symbols he could barely understand. But there was a riddle, inscribed beneath the carvings, written in the ancient tongue. I am not seen, yet I guide your way. I am not heard, yet I speak the truth. What am I? Aelric pondered. His heart raced, his mind working through the possibilities. Then, with a flash of insight, he spoke aloud. It is the wind. The door groaned, its heavy stone shifting aside, revealing the path beyond. Aelric stepped forward, relieved. He had passed the first trial. He had outwitted the challenge of the mind. Deeper still he went, until the forest gave way to a vast cavern. The light dimmed, and the air grew cold. In the center of the cavern stood a shimmering pool, its surface smooth as glass. Aelric approached, only to hear a voice, soft yet powerful. To awaken the dragon, you must prove your heart. Cross the pool, but beware of the shadows that dwell within. Without hesitation, Aelric stepped toward the pool, but as his feet touched the surface, shadows began to stir beneath the water. Dark figures, twisted and malevolent, rose from the depths. They whispered words of doubt, fear, and anger, trying to break his spirit. You are not worthy, one shadow hissed. You will never awaken the dragon. Another sneered, but Aelric did not falter. He closed his eyes and listened to the stillness within. He thought of the ones he loved, the village he called home, and the dream that burned in his heart. With each step, he silenced the voices, his heart growing steadier, stronger. Finally, he reached the center of the pool. The shadows faded, and the waters calmed. Aelric had proven his heart was pure, his resolve unbreakable. At last, Aelric came upon a massive stone door, adorned with glowing runes. A low rumble echoed from within, and the door creaked open, revealing the dragon's lair. The air was thick with ancient power. And there, lying in the center of the chamber, was Arion, the mighty dragon. The dragon's eyes fluttered open, glowing with an otherworldly light. Arion's deep voice rumbled through the chamber, echoing in Aelric's bones. You have passed the trials of mind and heart, young hero. But now comes the final test, the trial of the spirit. Aelric stepped forward, unsure of what lay ahead. The ground beneath him began to tremble, and a powerful force surrounded him. The air was filled with a strange energy, as if the very essence of the world was being tested. To awaken me, Arion said, you must prove that you are not afraid to face your own darkness. Stand against your greatest fears, for only then can you wield the power of the dragon. Suddenly, visions began to swirl around Aelric. He saw his greatest fears: the loss of those he loved, the failure of his mission, the darkness overtaking the world. The fear clawed at his mind, threatening to drown him. But Aelric stood tall. His voice, though trembling, rang out. I will not falter. I will face my fears, for I believe in the light within me. The power of the dragon shall be mine, for the heart of a hero is stronger than any darkness. And with that, the visions shattered. Aelric's spirit had proven its strength. With a final roar, Arion rose, his massive wings unfurling, filling the cavern with a brilliant light. The dragon's power surged through Aelric's veins, and he felt the ancient energy of the dragon merge with his own. In that moment, he understood the true meaning of the trial's strength was not found in the sword or in physical might, but in the courage to face one's inner trials and to never lose hope. As Arion's wings beat, the ground trembled, and the world outside began to shift. The battle between light and darkness was far from over, but with the dragon awakened, a new chapter had begun. Aelric, now bonded with Arion, would rise to meet whatever challenges lay ahead. The world would remember the day the dragon awoke and the hero emerged, for their journey had only just begun. Together, they would face trials far greater than those that came before, but with courage, wisdom, and heart, they would forge anew. Era one where the flame of hope would never fade. With Arion awakened, the air in the valley had shifted, filled with an energy both ancient and powerful. Aelric now stood at the threshold of a new chapter in his journey, but he could sense that the trials had only begun. The dragon's awakening was a signal to forces both good and evil that the time for reckoning had come. Aelric turned to Arion, whose golden eyes glowed with the wisdom of ages. What must I do next, great dragon? Arion's voice echoed like a storm in the cavern. You must face your first true challenge, Aelric. You have proven your mind, your heart, and your spirit. But there is a darkness rising in the east. A shadow that grows stronger with each passing day. It is a force of great evil, one that seeks to destroy the balance of this world. You must stop it, or all will be lost. Aelric nodded, understanding the weight of the task before him. The path ahead would not be easy, but he could feel the power of Arion coursing through him, a strength that transcended the trials. The dragon's wings unfolded, and with a powerful beat, the ground shook. Follow the path that leads to the mountains of Caldora, Arion instructed. There, the Shadow Lord waits, a creature of pure darkness. You must defeat him before his power spreads any further. With a final nod to the dragon, Aelric mounted his steed, a loyal horse named Galen, and set off toward the distant mountains, where the Shadow Lord lay in wait. The wind howled through the trees as he rode, but his resolve was firm. The fate of the world depended on him. The journey to Caldora was long and perilous, and Aelric faced many dangers along the way. But he pressed on, driven by the thought of the evil that threatened to engulf the world. As he neared the base of the mountains, the landscape grew barren and cold. A thick mist clung to the air, making it difficult to see more than a few feet ahead. The air was heavy with an oppressive silence, as though the very land itself was holding its breath. After hours of traveling through the desolate terrain, Aelric reached a narrow pass that led up into the heart of the mountains. The rocks seemed to whisper, and a chill ran down his spine. He knew that he was close to his destination. As he entered the pass, a voice echoed from the shadows, soft and menacing. "You dare to enter my domain, hero?" The voice was low and filled with malice. "You are but a fleeting flame in the presence of darkness. Come, face your doom." Aelric drew his sword, its blade gleaming with the light of Arian's power. "I will not be swayed by your words. I will stop you, Shadow Lord." From the mist emerged a towering figure, cloaked in shadows that seemed to writhe like living creatures. The Shadow Lord stood tall, his eyes glowing with an eerie light. "You are brave, but bravery alone will not save you," the Shadow Lord hissed. "You will fall, just like all the others before you." The earth trembled as the battle between light and darkness began. The Shadow Lord struck first, sending tendrils of darkness toward Aelric. With a swift motion, Aelric deflected the attack, the light of his sword cutting through the shadows like a blade through mist. But the Shadow Lord was relentless. He attacked with fury, his dark powers more terrifying than anything Aelric had ever faced. Each strike felt like a weight upon his soul, draining his strength with every blow. Yet, Aelric stood firm, his resolve unshaken. The light of Arian's power burned bright within him, and he would not let it be extinguished. The battle raged on for what felt like an eternity. Aelric's body was battered, his energy waning, but his spirit remained unbroken. He knew that he had to end this now, or the darkness would consume everything. With a roar, Aelric summoned the full strength of Arian's power. His sword blazed with an intense light, and with a single strike, he pierced the heart of the Shadow Lord, the darkness unraveling in a brilliant explosion of light. The shadowy figure screamed in agony as it dissolved into nothingness, leaving behind only the echo of its defeat. As the dust settled, Aelric stood alone on the mountain pass, the faint glow of Arian's power still shimmering around him. He had defeated the Shadow Lord, but he knew that the world was still in peril. There would be more challenges ahead, more trials to face, and more darkness to push back. But in that moment, Aelric felt a sense of peace. He had proven himself, not just to Arian, but to himself. He was more than a hero. He was a beacon of light in a world that had long been overshadowed by fear and darkness. The wind began to stir once more, and Aelric looked up to see Arian soaring overhead, his massive wings cutting through the sky. "Aelric," the dragon's voice echoed, "you have passed the final trial. The world is not saved yet, but you are ready. Together, we will bring light to the darkest corners of the earth." Aelric smiled. "Then let's begin the next chapter." With the defeat of the Shadow Lord, the world began to heal. But the journey was far from over. Aelric and Arian, bound by their shared trials, would continue to fight for peace, facing whatever challenges came their way. And though the path ahead was uncertain, one thing was clear: the light of their combined strength would never fade. After the battle with the Shadow Lord, Aelric and Arian journeyed back to the valley, their mission seemingly complete. But even as peace settled over the land, an unease lingered in the air. Aelric could sense that something far greater was stirring in the shadows, a force not yet revealed. "Aelric, there is one more trial," Arian spoke, his voice grave. "The forces of darkness are not defeated as they seem. There is a forgotten realm, hidden beyond the reaches of time, where the true master of shadow resides. It is from this realm that the darkness you faced draws its strength." Aelric's heart sank. What is this realm, and how can we defeat a force that comes from beyond time itself? Arian's wings fluttered with the weight of the knowledge he carried. The forgotten realm lies beneath the world's surface, in a place untouched by light. It is the source of all things corrupted by darkness, a place where ancient powers have been sealed away for centuries. But the seal is weakening. If the gate to this realm opens, the darkness will flood into our world, stronger than ever before. Aelric clenched his fists. Then we must stop it. How do we find this realm? Arian looked toward the distant horizon. You will need to journey to the heart of the world itself. There, deep within the cradle of the earth, lies the entrance to the forgotten realm. But beware, Aelric, for the journey will not be easy. The very ground you walk upon will fight against you, and the forces of darkness will try to stop you at every turn. Without hesitation, Aelric mounted Galen, his loyal steed, and set off once again, knowing that this final trial would be his most dangerous yet. Arian flew high above, his golden eyes scanning the horizon for any sign of the enemy. Days turned into weeks as Aelric and Arian traveled across the land, navigating treacherous terrain, battling remnants of dark forces, and facing harsh weather conditions. But Aelric's determination never wavered. He was driven by the knowledge that the world's fate rested on his shoulders. Finally, they arrived at the cradle of the earth, a place where the land seemed to pulse with ancient power. The entrance to the forgotten realm lay hidden beneath a massive stone formation, a dark, foreboding archway surrounded by swirling energy. It was said that only those who carried the light within them could find the way. As Aelric approached, he felt an intense pressure in the air, as though the earth itself was holding its breath. The stone archway seemed to shimmer, as though it were alive, reacting to his presence. "This is it," Aelric said softly, his heart pounding in his chest. Arian landed beside him, his great wings folding against his body. "Once you enter, there is no turning back. You will face the source of all darkness. If you fail, everything we've fought for will be lost." With a deep breath, Aelric stepped forward, the power of his sword pulsing with light. As he crossed the threshold of the archway, the world around him seemed to shift. The sky darkened, the air grew thick with shadows, and the ground beneath his feet seemed to twist and writhe. Aelric found himself standing in a place unlike any he had ever seen. The sky above was a swirling vortex of dark clouds, and the ground was made of cracked, blackened stone. The air was thick with the scent of decay and the echoes of lost souls. It was a realm of eternal twilight, where time itself seemed to bend and twist. At the center of this desolate land stood a towering figure, draped in shadow, its form indistinct and ever-changing. The very essence of the darkness seemed to radiate from it, making Aelric's heart race with fear. "So, you've come," the figure spoke, its voice like the rumbling of thunder, deep and terrible. "You think you can stop me, Aelric? I have waited centuries for a challenger, and you are but a fleeting moment in the eternal dance of light and darkness." Aelric raised his sword, its light glowing brightly in the oppressive darkness. "I will not let you bring ruin to this world. I will stop you, no matter what it takes." The figure laughed, a hollow sound that reverberated through the very bones of the realm. "You are brave, but your strength is nothing compared to mine. The darkness that I wield is eternal. You cannot defeat me." Aelric's mind raced. He had faced many challenges before, but this was different. This was the source of all the evil he had fought against. He could feel the weight of the darkness pressing in on him, threatening to overwhelm him. But then he remembered Arian's words, "You are the light. You have the strength of the dragon within you." Aelric focused on the light within him, the power that had been passed down to him through his trials. He could feel the warmth of Arian's spirit inside him, filling him with strength. With a roar, Aelric charged at the figure, his sword raised high. The blade glowed with a blinding light, cutting through the darkness with every strike. The figure screamed, its form flickering and cracking under the intensity of the light. "You cannot defeat me," it hissed, but its voice faltered as the light of Aelric's sword grew brighter and brighter. In one final, powerful strike, Aelric drove his sword into the heart of the darkness, and with a blinding flash, the forgotten realm shattered. The shadows dissolved, and the realm crumbled into nothingness. Aelric stood at the center of the crumbling realm, his sword still glowing with the power of light. He felt the weight of the battle lift from his shoulders as the darkness faded into nothingness. The air grew clear, and the oppressive silence was replaced with the sound of wind and birdsong. He had done it. The darkness was defeated, and the forgotten realm was no more. As Aelric stepped out of the shattered world, he found himself back in the valley, the sun shining brightly overhead. Arion was waiting for him, his golden eyes full of pride. "You have done it, Aelric," Arion said. "The darkness is no more, and the balance has been restored. You have proven yourself as a true hero, not by strength alone, but by the light in your heart." Aelric smiled, feeling a sense of peace and accomplishment. "The journey may be over, but I know the world will always need protectors. I will continue to fight for the light, alongside you, my friend." With that, Aelric and Arion soared into the sky, the bond between them unbreakable, ready to face whatever challenges the future held. As Aelric and Arion descended back toward the valley, the winds carried a sense of change. The world had been freed from the shadows, but the scars of war still lingered. The land, though peaceful, was not yet healed, and there was much work to be done. Aelric knew that his role as a protector was far from over. "Though the darkness has been vanquished, Aelric," Arion said softly, "the world is always in a state of flux. Darkness will always seek a way to return, and there will always be forces that seek to bring harm. You, as the chosen one, must continue to guard this balance." Aelric nodded. "I understand. My mission was not just to defeat this one darkness, but to ensure that the light continues to shine, no matter the cost." They landed in the valley, where the people had begun to rebuild. The once fear-stricken faces were now filled with hope. The sun had broken through the clouds, casting a golden hue over the land. There was a sense of renewal, but also a quiet sorrow, for those who had perished in the battles. As the days passed, Aelric felt the weight of responsibility upon him. He had been crowned the guardian of light, the protector of all the realms. Yet, he knew that his journey was not one he could walk alone. He called upon those who had fought alongside him during the trials: the warriors, the healers, the wise sages, and the ancient protectors of the land. They gathered in the valley, each carrying their own stories and wisdom. Together, they formed a council, united in purpose. The leader of the council, an old sage named Alara, spoke with great authority. "Aelric, you have fulfilled the prophecy. But our world is large, and there are many dangers lurking beyond the known lands. It is time for us to unite the realms. We must forge alliances and ensure that no one realm falls to darkness again." Aelric stood before the council, his heart heavy with the burden of leadership. "I agree. The forces of darkness may have been defeated, but we have seen the consequences of division. It is time for us to unite in peace, to ensure that all the realms stand strong together." And so, the decision was made. Aelric would embark on a new journey, this time not to face an enemy, but to bring the world together. He would travel from realm to realm, gathering leaders, warriors, and scholars to form a united front against any future threats. His mission would be one of diplomacy, forging bonds between the different peoples of the land. Aelric's travels took him to the farthest reaches of the known world. From the mist-covered peaks of the Emerald Mountains to the deep forests of the Elven Kingdom, he ventured through countless trials. In each realm, he faced challenges that tested not only his strength, but his wisdom and ability to lead. In the kingdom of the dwarves, he had to prove his worth by facing the trial of stone. A challenge that tested his ability to withstand the trials of time and pressure. He passed with flying colors, earning the respect of the dwarven king. In the elven kingdom, he was tested by the trial of silence, where he had to navigate through an ancient forest without disturbing a single leaf. His patience and connection to nature allowed him to succeed, earning the trust of the elven leaders. And in the desert of the Forgotten Sands, he was tested by the trial of the heart, a test of compassion and understanding. There, he met with tribes who had long been at war. Through understanding their pain and offering solutions to their suffering, he helped bring peace to a land torn apart by conflict. With each trial, Aelric grew stronger, not just as a warrior, but as a leader. He learned the value of diplomacy, compassion, and strength in unity. And through it all, Arion remained by his side, guiding him with wisdom and offering counsel in times of doubt. One day, while traveling through a desolate valley, Aelric felt a tremor in the earth. A great and powerful presence filled the Ira force that resonated with the very heart of the world. It was a presence that Aelric had not felt since his first battle with the Shadow Lord. Aelric, Arion warned, his wings flaring out. Something stirs beneath us. A force as old as the earth itself, one that predates even the shadows. Aelric's eyes narrowed. What is it, Arion? Is it another enemy? It is the dragon's flame, Arion replied gravely. The source of all the world's strength. It has been dormant for centuries, but it is awakening. Aelric stood firm. Then we must approach carefully. The dragon's flame could bring either salvation or destruction. It is a force that must be wielded with great responsibility. They journeyed deeper into the valley, where the ground began to shake with increasing intensity. Finally, they reached the source, the heart of the world itself. In the center of the valley, a massive stone altar stood, glowing with a faint but powerful light. Beneath it, a pool of molten lava swirled, its heat radiating for miles. At the center of the altar lay a massive crystal, pulsing with the energy of the dragon's flame. Aelric approached cautiously, sensing the immense power contained within. As he reached out to touch the crystal, the ground trembled violently, and a deep, resonant voice echoed in his mind. Who dares awaken the dragon's flame? The voice boomed. Aelric stood tall, his sword at his side. I am Aelric, guardian of light. I seek the power of the dragon's flame to unite the realms and ensure peace. The voice laughed softly. You are brave, Aelric. But the dragon's flame does not belong to one man. It belongs to the world. If you wish to wield its power, you must prove that you are worthy. You must first face the trial of the flame. The crystal before him began to glow brighter, and the molten lava surged around the altar. The trial had begun. The molten lava around the altar began to rise and swirl, forming fiery shapes that seemed to pulse with life. Aelric's heart raced as the deep voice echoed through the air. Prove your worth, guardian of light. Only those with unwavering resolve can awaken the dragon's flame. Aelric tightened his grip on his sword, knowing that this would not be a battle won by strength alone. The flame was not just a force of fire, it was a force of the very will of the world itself. He could sense its immense power, its ancient essence calling out to him. As the trial began, the ground cracked beneath Aelric's feet, and fire erupted in front of him in great pillars. Each one representing a different aspect of his spirit: courage, wisdom, compassion, and sacrifice. Aelric could feel them pushing against him, challenging his every conviction. The first pillar, representing courage, tested Aelric's strength of will. It flared into existence with a blaze so intense that it threatened to consume him. Aelric stepped forward, his armor glowing with the power of light as he faced the fire. His resolve was tested as the flames whispered doubt into his ears, urging him to turn back. "You are not strong enough," the fire whispered. "You have already lost so much. Why fight? Why continue?" Aelric stood firm, his voice steady. "I fight not for myself, but for those who cannot fight. I fight for a future where the darkness does not reign." With those words, the pillar of courage dissipated into the air, leaving Aelric standing before the next challenge. The second pillar, representing wisdom, arose. It was a storm of fiery winds, swirling in confusion, clouding Aelric's mind with visions of impossible decisions and impossible choices. His heart raced as the winds howled in his ears, each vision more confusing than the last. "You cannot lead," the winds screeched. "You are not wise enough to guide the realms. Every decision will lead to ruin." Aelric closed his eyes, taking a deep breath. He thought of all he had learned on his journey, the lessons from Arion, the wisdom of the sages, and the guidance of his companions. He remembered that leadership was not about having all the answers, but about making the best choice in the face of uncertainty. "I do not need all the answers," he said firmly. "I will lead with my heart, with the knowledge that I will learn from my mistakes and grow stronger." The winds calmed, and the pillar of wisdom collapsed, fading into the air. The third pillar, representing compassion, appeared as a wall of flames that seemed to burn with the pain of the world itself. It whispered of all the suffering Aelric had witnessed in his travels, the families torn apart, the lands ravaged by war. The pain of those who had lost everything. "You cannot save everyone," the flames whispered. "There will always be those who suffer, and you will be powerless to stop it. What good is your compassion if it does not change anything?" Aelric's heart ached, remembering the faces of the people he had met, some who had been saved, others who had fallen. But he knew that to abandon compassion would be to abandon hope. "I cannot save everyone," he said softly, "but I can offer them hope. I can stand with them, fight for them, and help them rebuild." The flames of the pillar softened, then disappeared, leaving only the warmth of the heart. Finally, the fourth pillar, representing sacrifice, rose before him. It was an overwhelming wave of fire, threatening to consume Aelric entirely. The voice spoke again, deeper this time. "You have already sacrificed so much, Aelric. Your friends, your family, your very soul. What more can you give? Will you continue to sacrifice everything?" The fire surged toward him, and for a moment, Aelric hesitated. He thought of the countless sacrifices he had already made, the toll it had taken on his body and spirit. But as he looked around at the people of the realms, their hope, their belief in Hiva, knew that he could not stop now. "I have given much," he said, his voice steady and unwavering, "but I would give even more for a future where the light never fades. For the ones who come after me, for the ones I have yet to meet." With those final words, the pillar of sacrifice burned away, leaving Aelric standing alone in the heart of the molten valley. The trial was over. Aelric stood before the glowing crystal at the center of the altar, his heart pounding in his chest. The lava surrounding him slowly began to cool, the flames fading into embers. The voice spoke again, this time softer, more approving. "You have proven yourself, Aelric, guardian of light. You have shown that you possess the courage to face the darkness, the wisdom to guide your people, the compassion to heal the wounds of the world, and the sacrifice to ensure that peace endures." The crystal at the center of the altar pulsed, its light becoming blindingly bright. Aelric raised his hand, and in that moment, the dragon's flame surged forth, its power flooding into him. The energy of the dragon's flame filled his body, filling him with an ancient, boundless power. It surged through his veins, lighting a fire in his soul. He could feel the weight of the world shifting. The balance of light and dark, of peace and war, was now in his hands. But it was no longer a burden. It was a gift. As the flame settled within him, Aelric stood taller than ever before. He was not just a warrior now. He was the protector of balance, the wielder of the dragon's flame. His eyes burned with the power of the ancient force, and he knew that his journey had just begun. Aelric, Arian's voice echoed from above, the time has come. The realms are waiting. You have the power to unite them, to heal the land. You are the flame that will guide them. Aelric nodded, his heart filled with determination. The world is ready, and so am I. With that, he turned away from the altar, the dragon's flame within him glowing brightly, casting a trail of light behind him as he walked toward his destiny. With the dragon's flame now coursing through his veins, Aelric knew the time had come to rally the forces of the realms. The flame within him had not only given him the power to confront the darkness, but also the ability to heal and unite those who had long been divided. The trials had shown him the way forward, and he would not falter now. Aelric traveled to the far corners of the world, seeking out the allies who would join him in the coming battle. First, he journeyed to the kingdom of Arian, where the old king, his mentor, awaited him. The streets were alive with the sounds of the city, and the people turned their eyes to Aelric as he arrived. The light of the dragon's flame glowing from his chest. The guards stepped aside, and he made his way to the royal palace. King Arian was seated in the grand hall, his silver beard long and wise. When he saw Aelric approach, his eyes widened in recognition and awe. "You have returned," Arian said, his voice deep with emotion. "You have done it, haven't you?" Aelric nodded, a humble smile on his face. "The flame has awakened. I am now ready to fulfill my destiny." Arian rose from his throne, placing a hand on Aelric's shoulder. "You have made us proud. But the darkness grows stronger by the day. We need your strength, Aelric. We need the dragon's flame to unite all the realms." "I will not fail you," Aelric replied, his resolve firm. Aelric's journey took him next to the High Council of Elders, a gathering of wise men and women who represented the kingdoms of the realm. The council hall was an ancient structure, built into the side of a mountain, with tall pillars reaching toward the heavens. The members were a mixture of kings, queens, sages, and warriors from across the lands. As Aelric entered the hall, the room fell silent. The dragon's flame burned brightly in his chest, illuminating the faces of those who had gathered to see him. "We have heard the stories of your trials, Aelric," said Lady Solana, a powerful sorceress. "But the darkness is not something that can be defeated by strength alone. We must unite our people, our forces, if we are to stand a chance." Aelric nodded. "That is why I've come. The flame within me burns with the power to heal, but it also burns with the power to unite. We must all stand together." King Varus, a tall man from the Eastern Kingdom, stepped forward. "The realms have been divided for centuries. The rift between light and dark runs deep. Can you truly heal those divisions?" "I believe I can," Aelric said. "The dragon's flame is not just a weapon. It is a force of renewal, of rebirth. It can bring hope where there is despair. But it requires the will of the people to change, to embrace a new path." Lady Solana turned to the council, and after a tense silence, nodded. "Then we shall stand with you, Aelric. The councils will unite, and together, we will face the darkness." The council rose in agreement, their voices uniting as one. With the council's support, Aelric gathered an army, a great force of soldiers, mages, and warriors who all stood ready to fight for the light. As they marched toward the heart of darkness, where the final battle would take place, Aelric felt the weight of responsibility heavier than ever. The journey was long and fraught with danger. Dark forces, remnants of the evil that had threatened the world for so long, harried their path. But the armies of light, led by Aelric and his allies, stood strong. His power, bolstered by the dragon's flame, protected them, but it also grew more intense as they neared their destination. Aelric's thoughts turned to the great battle that lay ahead. Would the flame be enough? Could it truly defeat the darkness that had taken root so deeply in the world? And would his allies be able to hold firm in the face of the overwhelming evil that awaited them? They arrived at the heart of darkness, a land of eternal twilight, where the sky was always shrouded in shadow, and the ground was cracked and blackened. The air was thick with malice, and a dark energy pulsed from the very earth. Aelric stood at the front of the army, the dragon's flame blazing brightly within him. His allies stood beside him, ready to fight to the last breath. Before them, the figure of the Dark Lord appeared, a being of pure shadow, his eyes glowing with a malevolent light. "You think you can defeat me, Guardian?" The Dark Lord sneered. "You, who have been so foolish as to awaken the dragon's flame? The flame is a beacon of hope, yes, but it is also a flame that consumes all in its path. You will be consumed, Aelric." Aelric stepped forward, his sword raised high, the light of the dragon's flame casting a glow that pushed back the darkness. "I will not be consumed. The flame is not just for destruction. It is for creation, for healing. I stand not alone, but with all those who seek peace." With a great cry, the armies of light charged forward, their weapons raised high, their spirits bolstered by Aelric's unwavering determination. The Dark Lord roared, summoning the full force of his shadow magic, but Aelric and his allies pressed on, fighting with the strength of the united realms. As the battle raged on, Aelric faced the Dark Lord alone, their swords clashing with the sound of thunder. The ground shook beneath them, and the very sky seemed to tremble with the intensity of their struggle. But Aelric's heart burned with the dragon's flame, and with a final, powerful strike, he shattered the Dark Lord's sword. The darkness that had plagued the world for so long began to recede, the light of the flame banishing it. With the Dark Lord defeated, the armies of light stood victorious. The land, once ravaged by war and darkness, began to heal. The sky cleared, the earth grew fertile once again, and the people of the realms rejoiced. Aelric stood at the forefront of it all, the dragon's flame within him a symbol of the light that had triumphed over the darkness. His allies gathered around him, each of them weary but triumphant. "We have won," said Arion, his voice filled with pride. Aelric nodded. "But the true victory is not in the battle won, but in the unity we have forged. Together, we have proven that no darkness can last forever, as long as there is light in our hearts." The realms were united once again, and Aelric, the guardian of light, stood ready to lead them into a new era of peace. As the dust settled from the final battle, Aelric stood on the edge of the battlefield, gazing out over the horizon. The sun began to rise, painting the sky in hues of gold and crimson, a symbol of the dawn of a new era. The dragon's flame, still burning brightly within him, had illuminated the path to victory. But now, it was time for a different kind of flame to burn, the flame of hope and renewal. Aelric's allies, those who had stood beside him through countless trials, gathered around him. There was Lady Solana, her heart as steadfast as ever King Arion. His wise eyes reflecting the pride of a leader who had seen his kingdom saved, and Varus, whose strength and resolve had helped turn the tide of battle. But as they stood together, a sense of peace enveloped them. The world had been forever changed, and they knew it. The realms were no longer divided by hatred or fear, but united in a shared dream of a better future. With the fall of the Dark Lord, Aelric returned to the people, the ones who had given him strength throughout his trials. He walked through the streets of Arion, the capital city, where the people had gathered to celebrate. His once heavy burden felt lighter now, though the responsibility of the flame still lingered within him. The people cheered, their faces radiant with hope. Aelric had not just defeated an enemy, but had restored their faith in the possibility of a brighter future. He had shown them that even in the darkest times, there was always a way forward, a path to healing and unity. As he passed through the streets, children ran up to him, their eyes wide with admiration. They saw him not as a warrior, but as a symbol of hope, the guardian who had set the world free. Their innocent laughter filled the air, and for the first time, Aelric realized that this was the true gift of the dragon's flame, the power to inspire, to heal, and to lead others to a better tomorrow. Aelric stopped at the steps of the palace, where King Arion awaited him. "You have done it," Arion said, placing a hand on his shoulder. "The flame within you was the key to our salvation. But it is the heart within you that has forged our future." Aelric nodded, feeling a deep sense of peace. "The flame is not mine alone, my king. It belongs to everyone. It was the combined will of all the people, their strength, their unity, that brought us here." Arion smiled. "And now, we must protect it." Aelric was called once more to the gathering of the High Council. This time, it was not to discuss war or tactics, but to forge a new vision for the realms. The darkness had been vanquished, but the light must now be carefully nurtured. In the council hall, there was no longer a sense of fear or urgency. Instead, the room was filled with quiet confidence, the kind that comes when people are united by a common purpose. Each member of the council, from Lady Solana to Varus to the many other leaders of the real MK, knew that their work was far from over. "We have been granted a rare gift," Aelric said, standing before them. "The darkness has been cast out, but it is our duty to ensure it never returns. The world we have fought for must be protected, not by sword and flame, but by unity and wisdom. The flame you carry," said Lady Solana, "is a beacon that must guide us. But it is the wisdom of the people that will truly lead us." Aelric's words were met with nods of agreement. They had learned a valuable lesson that power alone could not protect them. Only by embracing the wisdom of the heart, and the collective will of the people, could they build a lasting peace. The councils worked together, crafting laws that would ensure that all people, from the greatest king to the humblest peasant, had a voice in the shaping of their future. This was a world where light would always triumph over darkness, not through force, but through the strength of a united heart. Years passed, and Aelric's legend grew. The dragon's flame, once a symbol of fear and destruction, had become a symbol of hope and renewal. Children were taught of his trials and the lessons they imparted. They learned that the true strength of a hero lay not in their ability to defeat their enemies, but in their ability to unite others and guide them toward a better world. Aelric, now an elder, stood before the grand monument that had been erected in his honor, the dragon's flame forever blazing at its pinnacle. It was not just a monument to his victory, but a reminder to future generations of the power of unity, courage, and compassion. As he gazed at the flame, now a living part of the world, Aelric knew that the battle had been won. Not just for him, but for all the realms. The flame would continue to burn, and so long as it did, there would always be hope. The world was no longer divided. The people were no longer at war. And the light of the dragon's flame would guide them all into a new era of peace, prosperity, and love. And so, the tale of Aelric and his trials passed into legend. His name was spoken in the same breath as the great heroes of old, not because he had wielded a mighty sword or slain a terrible beast, but because he had shown the world what it meant to truly fight for something greater than oneself. The world was reborn, and with it, the hope that the light of the dragon's flame would never fade. Aelric had completed his journey. But for the realms, the true adventure had only just begun. Though peace had been secured, the realms were not without their challenges. The scars of war were still visible across the land, and the seeds of division remained. It was now time for the next generation of heroes to rise, to ensure that the mistakes of the past would not be repeated. Aelric, though an elder now, felt a renewed sense of purpose. The dragon's flame still burned within him, and he knew that his role in shaping the future was not yet over. He had passed his knowledge to his protégés, including his own daughter, Lyanna, who had shown the same strength and determination that had once driven him. One evening, as the sun set over the rebuilt kingdom, Aelric called together his closest allies for one final gathering at the old castle, now a sanctuary for those who sought guidance and wisdom. "There are those who will try to divide us again," Aelric said solemnly. "The peace we've achieved is fragile. It will take time, patience, and dedication to nurture it." Lyanna stood beside him, her gaze firm and steady. The next generation must understand that peace is not just the absence of war, but the active pursuit of unity and compassion. King Arion, now much older but still full of wisdom, spoke next. "The challenges we face are different now. There are no more armies to face on the battlefield. The true trials will be within our hearts and minds. Our ability to forgive, to trust, and to learn from our history." The group nodded in agreement. The battle for the future was not to be fought with weapons, but with understanding. And so, they began to prepare the young leaders for the trials of peace. Aelric, Lyanna, and the others convened a new council this time, a council of light. Representatives from every realm were called upon to sit and discuss the future, not just of their own lands, but of the world as a whole. It was a gathering like no other, where each voice mattered, and the bonds forged in battle were now used to build a future of collaboration and hope. Each realm, from the peaceful elven forests to the bustling human cities, sent their best and brightest to serve as ambassadors of peace. They came not just with their knowledge and skills, but with their hearts open, ready to learn from each other. It was here that Lyanna, with the guidance of her father, was tasked with a monumental responsibility to lead the next generation of heroes and ensure that the mistakes of the past would not be repeated. Lyanna stood before the assembled council, her father's flame still shining within her. She felt the weight of the legacy upon her shoulders, but she was ready. She had trained for this moment her entire life, learning from the wisdom of Aelric, Solana, and Arion. She had come to understand that it was not her father's strength or the power of the dragon's flame that would guide her, it was her heart. "I stand before you not just as Aelric's daughter, but as someone who believes in a future where we can live without fear," she said, her voice strong and unwavering. "I believe in a world where our differences make us stronger, where our shared humanity is the foundation of our strength." The room fell silent as her words echoed across the hall. She had inherited not just the flame, but the courage to lead. "We have a long road ahead," she continued, "but together, we can build a future that will outlast us all. Let the trials we face not break us, but strengthen us." Aelric, watching from the back of the room, felt a deep sense of pride. His daughter was ready. She was the future he had fought for. The next few years were marked by the trials of the heart, a series of tests designed to bring out the best in every leader. Each leader faced personal challenges, some battled doubts and fears, others were tested by temptation, and some had to reconcile past hurts. But through it all, they learned to rely not on their individual strength, but on their ability to work together. Lyanna was tested more than once. There were moments of doubt, moments when she felt the weight of Aelric's legacy press down on her shoulders. But each time, she rose, fueled by the lessons she had learned from her father and her own experiences. The trials were long and difficult, but they forged a new generation of leaders, each one stronger, wiser, and more united than before. The people of the realms watched, hopeful that this new council would be the beacon of light for future generations. As Liana and the council finally emerged from their trials, the land flourished. The people, inspired by the leadership they had witnessed, worked together to rebuild not just their cities and homes, but their hearts and minds. Aelric, now content with the knowledge that his daughter and the council would carry the flame forward, decided it was time for him to step back. His journey had come full circle. He had defeated the darkness, helped guide the realm through its trials, and now watched as the next generation took up the mantle. On the day of the final ceremony, Aelric stood at the edge of the Great Hall, looking out over the vast expanse of the kingdom. The sun was setting once more, but this time, it felt different. It wasn't just the end of a day, it was the beginning of a new age. Liana stood beside him, her eyes gazing ahead, filled with hope. "The flame is yours now," Aelric said softly. "It is ours," she replied, her hand resting gently on her father's. And so, the legacy of the dragon's flame continued, passed from one generation to the next. A beacon of hope in a world that would never forget the trials that had shaped it. Though Aelric's tale was now complete, the world continued to change. The flame would burn, guiding the people through whatever challenges came their way. And as long as the light of hope remained in their hearts, the darkness would never again take hold. Aelric had fulfilled his destiny, but the story of the realms was far from over. The new heroes would rise, the trials would continue, and the flame of hope would never fade. As time passed, peace reigned across the lands, but shadows, old and new, still lingered in the corners of the realms. Though the dragon's flame had been extinguished, the memories of its destructive power remained, as did the fears of those who had once ruled by it. In the quietest of nights, whispers began to stir in the farthest reaches of the world. A mysterious figure began to appear in the far eastern kingdoms. No one knew his name, but his presence was felt, like a cold wind sweeping across the lands. He spoke of old powers, forgotten deities, and prophecies long sealed away. Rumors began to circulate that he had found something, a key, an artifact that could awaken the ancient powers of destruction once again. Liana, now the head of the Council of Light, was the first to hear the whispers. Though the council had done well in preserving peace, there were always forces in the dark, waiting for a moment of weakness. She called for an emergency gathering. Liana stood at the head of the council chamber, her face serious. "There are rumors of a rising force to the east," she began. "A force that seeks to awaken the forgotten powers of the ancient world. We cannot let these forces undo all that we have fought for." Aelric, although retired, had not remained idle in his old age. He stood at Liana's side, his eyes filled with concern. "The flame is gone," he said, "but the world has a way of keeping its secrets. There is always something hidden, waiting. We need to investigate," Liana continued. "We must go to the eastern lands and find out what is happening." Arion, now an elder king, rose from his seat. "I will send scouts," he said, "but we must be careful. We do not know what we are dealing with." The council agreed that a group of trusted leaders, along with Aelric and Liana, would journey to the east to uncover the truth. The fate of the realms was at stake once more. The journey was long and dangerous. As they made their way through rugged landscapes, the signs of something dark in the distance grew clearer. The land itself seemed to have withered, as though something was draining the life from it. The once lush forests were now barren, and the air was thick with an ominous chill. As they approached the heart of the eastern kingdoms, they encountered strange figures, silent, cloaked in dark robes, who watched them from the shadows. They were the followers of the mysterious figure who had begun to spread rumors of ancient power. Aelric could feel the presence of something ancient, something familiar, but also very wrong. The closer they got, the more he felt the pull of a power that reminded him of the dragon's flame. "Whatever is here," Aelric whispered to Lyanna, "it is not just an artifact or forgotten power. It is something more. We will find out soon enough," she replied, her hand resting on her sword hilt. "And we will stop it before it destroys us all." At last, they arrived at a desolate temple hidden deep within the mountains. It was ancient, covered in runes that pulsed with a strange, dark energy. Inside, they found the figure they had been searching for, a man cloaked in black, with eyes that gleamed with the power of the long-forgotten gods. "I have been waiting," the figure said, his voice echoing in the vast chamber. "For centuries, the world has forgotten the true nature of its power. The flame may be gone, but the world is full of untapped potential. And I will harness it all." Lyanna drew her sword. "You are too late," she said. "We have learned the lessons of the past. We will not allow you to bring destruction back to our world." The figure laughed, and the ground trembled beneath their feet. "You think you can stop me? I hold the key to an ancient power that none can oppose. The power of the gods themselves." As the figure raised his hands, dark energy surged through the room, filling it with a deafening roar. The very air seemed to crackle with the power of the ancient flame, stronger than ever before. Aelric stepped forward, his voice calm yet filled with authority. "This is not the path to victory," he said. "You may awaken the flame, but it will consume you." The figure paused, a flicker of doubt crossing his face. "The flame does not care about you," he hissed. "It cares only for power." But Aelric's words had reached him. The flame may have been a source of immense power, but it was also a force of destruction. If one tried to control it for their own gain, they would be consumed by it. "Lyanna," Aelric whispered, "now is the time." Together, father and daughter reached out to the power that had once consumed Aelric's soul. They didn't seek to control it, but to free it from the grasp of the dark figure. With a single, powerful cry, they combined their strength, channeling the light that had been forged in the heat of the dragon's flame. The dark energy shattered. The battle was over, and the temple lay in ruins. The dark figure had vanished, and the ancient power had been sealed away once more. As Lyanna stood in the ruins, Aelric's hand resting on her shoulder, they both knew that this victory had come at a great cost. The flame would never truly be gone, but it could be controlled, protected, and understood. It would never again fall into the hands of those who sought to use it for destruction. "It is over," Lyanna said softly, looking out at the horizon. Aelric nodded. "For now. But the true test will be how we carry the flame in our hearts." As they returned to their people, they knew that they had sealed the flame once more. But there would always be new challenges, new threats, and new tests of their strength. Yet as long as the light remained within them, they would endure. The flame had been extinguished, but its light continued to shine. Lyanna, now the leader of the realms, carried her father's legacy forward. She passed on the lessons of peace and the power of compassion, ensuring that the flame would never be misused again. Aelric's journey had ended, but his spirit lived on through his daughter, and through all those who had learned the value of unity and hope. The dragon's flame had burned brightly, but it was not the end of the story. It was merely a chapter in a world that would continue to grow, evolve, and shine with light. The flame was always the quiet, steady, and unwavering, ready to guide those who would carry it. That's the end of today's story. See you.